What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson, today joined by my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. Today we're talking about two free agents, not this offseason, but who are going to be free agents next summer, talking about what their contracts might look like. And, even though the contracts haven't expired yet, could it be beneficial to maybe extend them now before the salary cap goes up and their demands get even higher? But we're going to get right into that. Also, it's Lafreniere and Shesterkin, as you can tell. But we're going to get right into that. Before we do, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a notification. Leave your thoughts on these upcoming contracts down in the comment section below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. But before we really get into it, Anthony, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing all right, but we are mourning the loss of a great resource in Cap Friendly. The Washington Capitals purchased Cap Friendly, so it will no longer be available for the use of the public this summer. So for these next few days and these next few weeks and episodes that we do, we got to utilize Cap Friendly. Got to continue to shout it out. Tell everybody, sign the petition. Keep Cap Friendly on the internet. Keep it out of the hands of the Washington Capitals. I know that there's petitions going around. But yeah, that sucks. It's not going to be fun. But in the meantime, we'll talk about these contracts. We'll take a look at the salary cap space on Cap Friendly and discuss whether or not the Rangers should extend these guys. And I'll just go off the bat and say the contractual demands of Igor Shesterkin that we're hearing right now are already pretty insane. Like, we are hearing $12 million as this big number that he's reaching for. Who knows if he really gets that? Maybe he gets 8, 9, 10, 11. Maybe he does get the 12 that he wants, reportedly. Who knows exactly where it lands? But you are right, Eric, in the sense that the salary cap is going up $4.5 million this year. Who's to say it doesn't go up another 4.5, 5, 6, 7 million next year? The league is growing. The NHL is gaining more fans by the day, which is great for hockey, great for hockey fans. The fact that the sport is growing and becoming more popular in the United States is awesome, very important. But as it continues to grow, the salary cap space will grow. And that doesn't mean that the Rangers are going to have more money to spend. That means that the players' contractual demands are going to continue to grow. So that $12 million, while right now to some Rangers fans, it sounds unrealistic for Igor Shesterkin, 5 years' time, it might be a bargain. Who knows? The way that the league is growing, the way that the salary cap continues to expand, getting these players under contract now for the long term is very important. That's why you can endlessly praise the fact that the Rangers signed my boy Vinny Trocheck to such a long-term deal that looked a little bit crazy at the time, but now that contract kind of looks like a bargain. And 3 years from now, when he's still on that contract, it's going to be even more of a bargain. So it is important for the Rangers to think about making those extensions now, sooner rather than later. We'll go ahead and discuss Alexei Lafreniere and Igor Shesterkin, what we would sign them for, and whether or not we think they should sign them now or wait.
Yeah, well, let's start with Lafreniere. Also, shout out Cap Friendly. I'll be using you the entire episode today. And before we get into it, I know Cap Friendly is supposed to shut down in July. So I think like early July, we got to have a farewell Cap Friendly episode where we just use the website the whole time and we just craft like a perfect team and talk about like every possible contract, just a goodbye party for the website because I'm getting emotional thinking about it. But anyways, Alexei Lafreniere, here's my concern with him and the fact that he's going to be a free agent next summer is he just had an incredible breakout campaign. Looking back seasons prior, he only ever barely hit the 30-point mark. I think last season he hit 31 points was his career high. And then all of a sudden this year he comes out, scores 28 goals and 57 total points. Now the contract that he's on right now was a 2-year bridge deal worth $2.325 average annual value. So he's going to get a pay raise. And the reason why I think the Rangers really need to go out and extend him now is because his 57 points career high this season, I think that number is going to go up even higher next season. He's probably going to play with Panarin and Trocheck again. He's fully finding himself as a player, and he's developed into that first overall potential that we know that he's had. So 57 points going up even higher to probably definitely in the 60s, maybe even 70 or 80 points. The number that of whatever average annual value he's going to get on his next contract is going to end up being higher next summer than it is right now. So in my opinion, whatever number Lafreniere is asking for, we might as well take that offer right now before it goes up even higher next season. So the same thing could probably be said for Shesterkin as well, just by the way that he's been developing and becoming a better goalie practically every season. I think for the sake of just keeping that price point lower and not even allowing them to have their demands get up, I think it's extremely important to sign Lafreniere in particular right now because honestly, a 57-point player, I want to lock him up long term. And, with term comes a higher price point. So Lafreniere, 7-year extension. I'd be happy giving him like a 7x7 right now. 7 years, $7 million average annual value. Wait till next year. That probably is going to go up to 8 or 9 million as well. So that's just my opinion on Lafreniere and why the Rangers necessarily need to do it sooner rather than later, just outside of the rising cap and all that stuff. But I'm curious to know what you think Lafreniere might be looking for or what he might get.
Yeah, Lafreniere is going to get a fair amount, and so I am in total agreement with you that he should be signed this offseason. I think that the way that he performed in the postseason was enough to solidify him as a long-term contributor on this team. Even in the regular season, he looked great, but he really turned it on in the postseason when a lot of these Rangers players didn't. So you have to imagine he's still young, he's still developing, he's only getting better year to year. This is a guy that the Rangers are going to want to sign long-term, and I mean long-term. I'm talking like a big-time long extension, and the longer the contract is, the better of a bargain it's going to be for the Rangers if he continues to develop and play better year to year. So whatever contract total you think is worth it for Alexis Lafreniere, right now his AAV is only 2.6. I'm sure that's at least going to double. He's probably going to get at least 5 million, maybe even 6, and I'm cool with that. I think for a player who's got this potential, already performing this well in the top 6 and only has a potential to get greater and greater, yeah, you definitely want to keep Lafreniere around long term. And like I said, signing him now before that contract continues to rise. I mean, if he puts up 70 points next year, Rangers are going to have to pay him a whole lot more. So sign him now, get him on this deal as soon as possible, and make it a long one. Make it so that when he is putting up 70, 80 points per season, you've got him on a deal that's paying him for a player who's probably making 50 to 60 points per season. That's kind of the strategy that the Rangers should take. So I would sign Alexis Lafreniere as soon as possible. It's just about whether or not he wants to sign a deal now or if he wants to wait a year. If he were smart, he'd probably want to wait a year and, try and get some more money and prove it. But he also might be enticed by the long-term security if the Rangers do offer him a very long-term contract sooner rather than later.
And I will add like a perfect example of this Lafreniere situation. As much as we dislike, I'm just going to say hate, the New Jersey Devils, one of the things that I do have to give them props for is their contract with Jack Hughes, who was drafted first overall right before Capo Caco. Man, I wish they just took Caco. But Hughes, they extended him to a really long I think it was a 7-year contract, like right off the bat. Like the second his entry-level contract ended, they just said, we're handing you 7 years for what we expect you might be around in a couple of years. And then all of a sudden, the next year, he just surged into like a 100-point player. So now the Devils have a really good generational talent almost for a really low price point for a really long time. So I think that's what the Rangers need to do right now, just cash in on Lafreniere's potential. And hopefully when he continues to grow and exceed as a player, it'd be perfect. Looking back on it, we probably should have done that 2 years ago. Instead of this bridge deal, just signed Lafreniere for 7 years at like $4 million. And then we'd be having them super cheap for the foreseeable future. But I agree. It's important that the Rangers get Lafreniere locked up long-term as quickly as possible. But let's transition over to the superstar goaltender, Igor Shesterkin. I was just trying to look for it. I can't find it, so I apologize. But someone commented on one of our recent videos. I'll have to go back and shout them out in the comments after this. But we look at that number, $12 million. It sounds like a ridiculous amount. It'd be one of the highest paid goaltenders of all time. But when you compare it to Henrik Lundqvist's contract when he was in his prime, it kind of makes sense. Where, again, I forget what the number was, but Henrik Lundqvist in his prime with his contract made up around like 12% of the team's available salary cap, I believe it was. And with the expected salary cap going up this year and next year, Igor Shesterkin making $12 million would be like that exact same percentage of the team's salary cap that Lundqvist was making. And everyone always thought how wonderful that contract was and all that stuff. So yes, on paper, $12 million sounds like a lot. But when you talk about what Shesterkin is worth and previous contracts in the past, just based on percentages of the salary cap, it does kind of make a little bit more sense. Obviously, I would be a lot happier if Shesterkin were willing to take a lesser contract. just to help benefit the team, give Drury a little bit more room to work. But honestly, at the end of the day, Shesterkin has earned his $12 million. I would rather just sign that contract maybe next summer when there is a little bit more money to work with than right now, because the Rangers do have quite a bit of work to do this summer. So to me, in my opinion, just because Shesterkin's asking for so much, I would say Lafreniere, extend him this summer as quickly as you can, cash in on his potential. Shesterkin, I'm okay with waiting till next summer just to see if that cap does go up and see exactly what percentage or chunk of the cap space he would really be taking up in order to properly work these negotiations.
Yeah, right now that 12 million would be over 13% of the salary cap space, probably close to 14%, which is a pretty big number. And I know, like you said, Henrik Lundqvist was making around 12% of the salary cap space. For it to be pushed up to 14%, that's quite a lot. It's a tough bridge to sell in some ways. It obviously makes Igor the highest paid goalie in the league. And comparatively to the rest of the team, I mean, he'd be the highest paid player on the team. He'd be making more than Artemi Panarin in average annual value, who's currently the highest paid at 11.6 million AAV. So again, it's kind of a tough bridge to sell, but it's Igor Shesterkin. Can you really let him walk? I don't think so. He is the backbone of this team, the heart and soul of this team. And this team would not be nearly as successful as it is if not for Igor Shesterkin. So I do agree with you, though. I think the Rangers would be wise to wait a year and potentially see if Igor has a market at that price. I don't know how many teams. I'm sure teams are going to line up to try and sign Igor, but are they going to line up to sign him for 12 million AAV? I think that remains to be seen. Probably. I would assume so, but I don't see any problem with the Rangers waiting on that one. They're not going to just let him walk, I don't think. I think they're going to get a deal done with him. But giving it some time and seeing what his contract demands truly are, I think that's probably wise. And it's a little bit different with Alexis Lafreniere because right now you're signing Alexis Lafreniere to a deal, but projecting that he's going to outperform it because he's still young and growing and getting better. With Igor, you're making him the highest paid goalie in the league. So whether you pay him now or you pay him next offseason, you're still making him the highest paid goalie in the league. So it doesn't really make a difference like it does with Alexis Lafreniere. With Lafreniere, you pay him, he gets better, it becomes a bargain. No matter what you pay Igor or when you pay Igor, you're paying him an extreme amount. So I do think the Rangers can wait on that one, see where the salary cap space is, see what the roster is looking like. And listen, man, maybe you never know, knock on wood, but the Rangers could be absolutely terrible this year and have reason to blow it up after next season. So that's something that you have to kind of keep in mind as well. It's different with Lafreniere. You still want him around long-term regardless. But you can also make the argument that as long as Igor is here, this team won't blow up and be terrible. So, yeah, it's an interesting decision that the Rangers are facing. But like I said, it'll be a bargain if you sign Lafreniere now. It's never going to be a bargain when you sign Igor because you're making him the highest paid goalie. So you might as well just wait on it.
Yeah, I have to agree. Just especially with all of the other stuff the Rangers need to get done this summer. Like obviously, and this isn't like a perfect world as well because I don't know if the Rangers physically will be able to sign Lafreniere to that major extension this summer, considering they also need a first-line right winger, probably a couple new defensemen, and they got a little bit of stuff to work on. But if it is possible for Lafreniere, do it this summer. Shesterkin, I'm just going to put it out there. It's probably pretty impossible to even make that happen this summer, or you can just kiss your first-line right winger goodbye. And then you're sticking with the same decor for the next couple of years. But yeah, Shesterkin, definitely okay to wait. Again, I'm gonna find that comment that the fan posted because they definitely deserve a shout out because I forget what the number was. It might not have been 12%. It could have been higher to that 14%, but I remember it was the same of what Lundqvist was making percentage of the salary cap wise. So $12 million for Shesterkin, it makes sense. I'd be okay with it just based on that stat alone. But Lafreniere, he's going to get a pretty big pay raise. Need to capitalize on that now. But unless you have any final thoughts, Anthony, that about wraps up today's episode of Fireside Rangers. If you guys did enjoy, please make sure that you like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. We shared a lot of different ideas about what these contracts might look like. We're excited to see what you guys have to say about it down in that comment section below. And lastly, please be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers. you.